Hello, everyone. We'll just give 1 minute to the people to join. Hello, so 1 minute is gone. So hello, everyone. I'm Danielle Winandi, and I'm here with Pauline. And we are very pleased to welcome you all for our first webinar, Elevate the Leader in You. Pauline and I are passionate about co-elevation, co-creation, and self-development. Most events we attend spark a light in our mind, and they are very useful. But we are still craving for more tangible solutions. So this is why we are launching Elevate the Leader in You. 30 minutes, one leader in its field, and many tools that you can use and apply from today in your life and work. Our ultimate goal is really to learn from each other and to grow collectively. Today, we will discuss with Aurelie, so for the next 15-20 minutes, and then open the floor to your questions.
Thank you, Danielle. Hello, everyone. I'm Pauline. Today, we will discuss with Aurelie, and we will discuss about communication. Communication is really at the heart of everything. It's everywhere, in every business, in every interaction. It's implicitly linked to sharing and learning, and very much related to self-development. During this conversation today, we want to go beyond the traditional tips you can have regarding TED Talks, and we would like to offer you different perspectives. We aim to highlight and explore with you what is really at stake when a leader is engaged in a conversation with an audience. And so after that, you can embrace this and elevate your conversation. To do that, we will discuss with Aurelie. Aurelie, as a Women Executive Committee communication coach, will explain us what, beyond the message itself for sure, makes an interaction memorable and impactful. So first of all, I let the floor to Danielle in order to introduce Aurelie.
Yes, thank you, Pauline. So I had the privilege and the amazing chance to work with Aurelie for several years now. She has been helping me to position myself on strategic moments of my career, and she helped to prepare leaders to be at their best and delivering impactful presentations. So with Aurelie today, we will talk about the perfect pitch. Intention, the state of being versus doing, and keeping the leadership of a conversation during Q&A, and also the impacts of pandemic for leaders presentations. So, and then we will discuss we will open the floor to questions. So, first question, Aurelie, can you tell us who you are and what made you do what you do?
Sure. I'm especially delighted and extremely pleased to be here today for this conversation from San Francisco. I rarely have a chance to discuss what's behind the scene with my work, and it's a great pleasure to have that conversation. So about me, I am the second of a family of 4 kids. My dad was an engineer, my mother a psychologist for children with a high intellectual potential, and I grew up in a small town called Annecy in France. It's about 20 minutes away from Geneva. And in my family, science was really highly valued, and somehow I was designed to become an engineer. And the plan didn't unfold as planned. So at a very early stage, I was fascinated by the brain function, neuroscience, and I went to medicine school to better understand what's behind our minds. And I had this, was driven by these questions, why sometimes we do have access to our physical or emotional resources and sometimes we really feel stuck. So how can we deliberately choose our state of mind and being and get the reins back in those circumstances? So about a year later, yes, I shift gears and enrolled in a school to become a psychologist. So more than the disease, I was actually curious to understand how to be at ease as often as possible. So that was my question. So I chose right away to apply my psychological degree to the business world, and I specialized in HR and organizational management. So coaching at the time was quite recent in France. And it was growing. And along my journey and personal development, I was more and more curious about the complexity of the conversation that is implied between what I called our different types of intelligence. So not only the cognitive intelligence, but the emotional intelligence and the somatic intelligence. So how does that conversation between the mind, the heart, and the body connection works? And that was what fascinates me. So this dance to me is the embodiment of who we are. In any conversation, whether it's one-on-one, one-on-few, or one-on-many, these three dimensions are involved. So how to be at our best when we most need it, that's a question that drives me. So I think that the base of this question is linked to, if we are at our best, then we have more to share and more to give to our audience. So I try to identify a moment where there's a lot at stake, a lot of pressure to work with leaders on that aspect, whether it's a board meeting, a public presentation, a VC pitch. And long story short, that's how I became a communication coach. So I love the fact that in this setup, there is a deadline, and people that I work with can really feel the difference between the before and after their preparation. Yeah, so that's what drove me there.
Great, thank you, Aurelie. Is there anything such a perfect pitch or a perfect presentation?
So you will find many books that will tell you that yes, there is tips and tricks and ways to do this, but most of them will tell you how to position your body, have the proper eye contact, but to me, even if you apply that techniques à la lettre, as we say in French, it might look like a perfect pitch, but you may not have the impact that you're looking for. So to me, the perfect pitch is the one that really moves and touch your audience, but also the one that inspires action. And for that, as a speaker, I think that you need to embark the whole of you in the conversation. And public speaking, for example, is a place where you can hide. So interestingly, in that circumstance, I would say that the cognitive intelligence is not enough to be convincing. Your message has to resonate first for you and also within you emotionally and physically. So it's a key component to reach out to your audience and to be impactful, actually. So there's this famous TED talk from a guy called Will Stephen, who has an empty content, but he put the emphasis on the intonation and his intention to connect with the audience. And not only it's funny, but it works actually. It's quite engaging for the audience, and he's making a point with that. So I encourage you to watch that talk. So to answer your question, there is nothing like a perfect pitch or a perfect technique. I would say the real work is to learn how to develop a state of being and feeling good more than trying to do things.
Okay, so how do you and how could we tackle these invisible dimensions beyond the content of a presentation?
So there are different steps when you have to present whether it's a presentation or a talk. So step one is setting an intention and somehow tuning your emotions. Step two, prepare your content accordingly. Step three, deliver with the whole of you, as we mentioned earlier. And step four is the moderate Q&A session, even if you're the one answering the questions. So step two, the content is quite easy part, I would say. Step one may be the most important and the less invested when you prepare a conversation. So speaking in front of a group, an audience, is something that is not natural. So you're exposed, your amygdala in your brain is activated, and this is the place, the amygdala, responsible for flight, fight, or freeze response. So step one is the most important, is to set the tone for which state of being you want to be when you make your presentation. So here you have 2 points of attention. One is to focus on you, and the other one is to focus on the audience. So the first one of focus is your personal and own state of being. So where your attention goes, the energy grows in a way. So that's when you have to choose you get a chance to choose to focus basically more on ease than on dis-ease or uncomfort. In music, I would say that that's the equivalent of the clef of the score, where you really set the tone of what's coming up next. So how do you do this? That's the question. Basically by asking questions like, who do you want to be in the situation? Because it focuses your attention on what you want more than what you don't want to leave in this experience. So at that stage, the work is to basically replace somehow fear by curiosity. So there's different ways to do that by asking yourself a series of questions. For example, do you prefer fear or curiosity? Do you prefer tension or ease? Do you prefer fear or comfort? Do you prefer panic or fun? Do you prefer a sense of tension or being relaxed? Do you prefer to be closed or open when you present? Or do you prefer anxiety or serenity? I guess the answers of those questions are quite obvious, but by the contrasting experience through the same question, you may have noticed that when you're asked this question, you have an immediate answer from your body in response to it. So you have to learn and know how it works for you when it works well. What is your physical response? What is your emotional state? And learning from that will teach you how it feels when it feels good for you. And when you focus on ease, comfort, softness, gentleness, joy, serenity, you choose. Your body, your mind, and your behavior aligns with it. And it's that famous brain-body conversation that is at stake. So being at ease, feeling good is also your responsibility as a speaker, because the better you feel, the better you have to give, the more available you are for your audience. So by paying attention to this very first step and choosing your desired state, you're aligning it with it naturally, and that's the trick. The second point of focus is your audience, obviously. So defining your intention for your audience is important, because you need to be clear with why should they care about what you're going to say, and what's in it for them. So You can ask questions to yourself like, what could you offer to your audience that they cannot say no to? And it is your responsibility as a speaker to define how do you want to make your audience feel, what do you want them to say after they hear you talk, and what could they do thanks to the conversation that you're going to have with them. So that implies that you enter as a speaker in a state of generosity, and when you elevate your audience and you're here for them, then you elevate yourself as a leader, definitely. So in a sense, I see my work as a catalyst for well-being in strategic moments for the people that I work with. So I often compare my work as one of a musician, a musical instrument tuner, where the musical instrument here is being human beings, basically.
Thank you, Aurélie. So which tools do you use to work on these focus points and shift the state of being of your clients?
Well, basically, it's always different because it depends on the person. What you believe in usually is what works best for you, so you can start being aware of that. But anything that brings you, what I call that bringing you back home in your body. So it comes with another question. I love questions because when you ask a question, then your brain starts to answer it no matter what. So the question would be, what do you do when you want to reconnect with yourself and relax or feel calmer? Or what do you do that puts a smile in your heart? And for some, it might be listening to music, doing a meditation, going for a walk in nature, immerse yourself in water, whether it's a bath or going to swim, dance, visualization, thinking about your kids or your little animal, anything that helps you shift your inner state. And each person is unique, as I said, so the possibilities are infinite, and that's what each of us have to be aware of and learn to be able to use them for our own benefits, but also the benefits of our of others, including our audience. So I feel extremely appreciative to be able to discover so many ways to reconnect with oneself and to really be present when I work with my clients.
And how does this first step help build the content for a talk or a conversation?
Well, what differs from if you start with step one.
Yes, with step one, sorry, yeah.
Yeah. So what differs is you really invest in the relationship between you and your audience, and somehow it's not about you and what you have to say, but it's about them and how you want to make them feel. So it kind of shifts the pressure from you to them in a way. So for most people, it's a release of pressure, and with those two point of focus for your intention, it also helps you find the right posture. So it becomes easy to find then the relevant information that your audience would need to remember, to be able to do, think, or communicate differently thanks to your presentation or conversation with them. So you'll find all you need in literature with the TED Talk or Talk Like TED. Even before that, Aristotle, who to find techniques to build a simple, clear, and memorable message. Basically, the trick is 3 takeaways for your audience. Keep it simple and clear.
Thank you. So now that we have set the tone of the conversation with a clear intention and how to build the content, what else can leaders do to improve their impact?
So one of the most underprepared, the other underprepared aspect of the preparation for your conversation is step 4. Step 4 is the Q&A session. So even with a clear intent, memorable and actionable message for the audience, I see too many leaders, or most of them, losing the momentum that they have built in the conversation with their audience when the Q&As come.
So how to be sure to keep our leadership during the Q&A session?
Mm-hmm. First, it requires preparation. So somehow prepare for the unprepared. So you can list all the questions, for example, that you do not want to be asked and turn them into questions you're happy to answer, basically. So also your posture change during the Q&A. So you need to add one more hat. You're not only the speaker, but you're also a moderator of a conversation. So with your moderator hat, first you need to listen the question till the end, and most speakers jump into the answer before they think about the answer. So as a moderator, you really listen to the question till the end. Then you make sure that there is one question. Sometimes it's just a comment, sometimes it's 5 questions in one question. So as a moderator, your job is to clarify that and find one question for the speaker. So with your moderator hat, you make sure that it's aligned with the theme of the conversation and that it's really something that is appropriate. If not, then you can postpone it to a different time and place to answer that question. And you rephrase the question for the speaker to simplify it, speaker being you, of course, to simplify it and align it with your content. Then with your speaker hat, you can answer a qualitative question and create more value for your audience. So bring details, anecdote, any example that you didn't have a chance to develop during your presentation. That's how we do it.
Thank you. So this is a great thing, I think, in the physical world, but how to adapt in a digital environment? What are the most common mistakes you see?
So every step 1, 2, 3, 4 that we mentioned before remains true with the digital communication. Developing an intention, having a clear, simple, memorable message, preparing for Q&A, and also working on the delivery. Yet the format of interaction with an audience is quite more demanding. Just to name 3 elements, you need to pay attention to the rhythm differently, the sound and the sight. The rhythm, the attention lap of an audience is shorter. It's about 10 minutes. So you have to re-engage, asking them questions, using pause and attention. The sound is probably the most important thing. So you can manage a conversation without the camera, but not without the sound. And that's key online for online conversation. And the second most important thing is the sight. So engage with your camera, not with your screen, because this is your eye-to-eye contact with the audience. And place the camera at a really the eye level. That's creates more proximity with the audience. The lighting also is really important. So it's a reason for part of the reason for the so-called Zoom fatigue. It's actually coming from the lack of ability for people to read the nonverbal cues because you don't see the body the same way, and you cannot read it on faces if the faces are not clearly lightened. So it affects the listening experience. So online, pay attention to the rhythm, the sound, and the sight of your audience.
Thank you. Quick question about you, Aurélie. What does make your heart sing, and how to get there?
Wow. So what make my I'll be quick with this one, because what make my heart sing is for me, there is no greater experience that to see the speaker getting in the flow and being in the zone, as my former client from Google said. There's nothing that makes me happier than to see them enjoying the moment on stage, and also after observing that it was a good moment for them and enjoying the conversation. That's my biggest reward.
Thank you. So what did you learn from the pandemic?
Well, when I learned from when the pandemic started, I was in France actually for 8.5 months, and I saw a lot of noise online. So instead of telling, I decided to open my mind and listen. So I interviewed some of my previous clients, some leaders and CEOs, to really understand how they cope with the situation, what works for them, what doesn't work, and collected some of these stories in a website that will be released next week. It's called Embody Alternatives, and they share their insight and ideas. And that's what I learned from the pandemic, from my clients, and that gives me hints on what works and doesn't work.
Last question for you, Aurélie. Do you want to share a book that marks you recently for our audience?
I really love the No Rules Rules. It's about the Netflix and the culture. It's about Netflix and the culture of reinvention from Reed Hastings and Erin Meyers. So they basically worked on building a culture of trust and responsibility, and it resonated a lot with me. So I really like the fact that the CEO is Reed is really inspiring leaders who constantly challenging the status quo, also including his own position as a CEO. So from a content perspective, also the structure of the book is really, really good.
Thank you, thank you. So now I will open the floor to questions. So I know there is a bit, we had a bit of issues with the starting of this webinar. So we have people on YouTube, we have people in this platform, and I'm trying to reach out everyone. So if you want, you can send us your questions either through the conversation on LinkedIn or YouTube or via here. We will try to get them.
We will try to manage to find some question.
Yes, oh my God.
Maybe during the time you need, Daniel, to have question. Another question for you, Aurélie. You were in France as a French coach. So how come you from a French coach in San Francisco? What was the path to be here today for you?
Now, how did I end up being in the United States for coaching, right?
Yeah.
So it's been quite a long journey, but the first thing that I can remember that gave me the desire to work internationally was probably one of my teachers. He was the chairman of INSEAD. He launched the Asia Pacific campus in Singapore, and it was also Professor Emeritus in Stanford in California. And somehow it kind of opened the door of a new possibility where you can have an international career. He studied in the same school as I did, and it opened the horizons for me. I didn't know it would be possible, so that was a desire, of course. That was a desired state for me, but I didn't know it could be possible. America, I mean, the US is really the mecca of the coaching. So I had a chance to work with a client there in 2012, I think. And it was a VP, American VP of a company. And he said, I don't know what you did during your coaching, but I've never met anyone like this. And it was extremely efficient. And that I was shocked. And I think that gives me the green light to enter in the US and give it a chance, thinking that there may be something different to offer on this market.
Great, thank you. So we have a question here. What are your 3 pieces of advice if you have to remember something from this webinar?
What are the 3 pieces of advice? Well, I would say learn about yourself and work with yourself, because the communication tool is you. So you have the responsibility to feel good when you present, because this is where you have more to give. This is a good place to be first, and this is where you will have more to share and to your audience. The second point would be prepare. We don't spend enough time preparing. It doesn't have to be long, but you need to think in terms of who you want to be in the situation. What are your 3 takeaways for your audience? And how to be available for the conversation. And the third one would be have fun. Enjoy yourself as you do it, because life is supposed to be fun and good. We don't need to be too serious to be. We don't need to be sad to be serious. Actually, I think.
Thank you, Aurélie.
Okay. So I think that was the last question, and time is over. It's almost 6:30. Thanks very much, Aurélie, for being with us for this first webinar, Elevate the Leader in You. We hope you enjoyed this webinar. Today we learned all about communication and about the state of being, about the things you have to have in mind when you prepare your conversation or your talk. Do not hesitate to give us some feedback about the content we provide you today. Aurélie shared with you a lot of tools. We hope that will be useful for you. For us, that will be for sure very useful. Our next webinar will be the 16th of July. 19th, sorry, the 19th of July. We will communicate about the speaker very soon, so stay tuned. You will have the speaker and the topic of the talk for the 19th of July. Last but not least, for us, feedback is definitely a gift. So please let us know what you appreciated during this talk and what you want to improve for the next one. Have a nice evening. Have a nice day in San Francisco, Aurélie. Once again, thanks a lot.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.